Hello and welcome back to the BBC. Not the category, but the news station. Let's check in with today's stories. Diablo Immortal is projected to win Game of the Year from Polygon after Fallout 76 was mentioned on their Game of the Year for 2018. Keanu Reeves to play Link in an upcoming Zelda Breath of the Wild movie. He was seemingly perfect for the role, for being breathtaking. And the UK has declared loot boxes not gambling. We sent a hidden camera into EA today to see how they're dealing with the news.
Happy EA Day, everyone.
Hello!
It's a great day for EA. They're very happy. It's like a national holiday for them.
EA Games. Here's your problem. Someone set this thing to evil.
Obviously, the fight against loot boxes has been a long and drawn out one, but it doesn't look like we're making much progress because today, the UK gambling regulator, they're like, you know what, those loot boxes, they're okay.
They're all good.
They're not our problem.
They're all
Maybe
good.
one day they might be our problem, but right now they're not gambling. That's disappointing on a number of fronts. It does have some pretty big implications for this whole battle against loot boxes in the longer term. Let's talk about it after the drop.
Okay guys, so what is a loot box? Okay, that's the real
Jeez,
question.
Sam, great question. Our audience has no idea. Why don't you explain it to
I know
them?
it can be a bit ambiguous, but ultimately everyone knows this. Well, I mean, maybe you don't know this, but it is a silly little box usually that'll drop. You don't know what's in it. You'll open it, and it could be a legendary. It could be the shittest item in the whole game, but there's a big thing of chance there. The problem with that is sometimes you can buy 60 of them or 100 of them for the cheap price of $59.99. And that will up your odds of potentially getting that legendary that you want.
Sam knows this because Sam spends all his money on Overwatch
No,
loot boxes.
I did spend a lot on Hearthstone. I did over $1,000 on Hearthstone, but I never bought a single one in Overwatch.
Loot boxes has been a challenge for the industry in the past. Back in the day, funnily enough, EA really led the charge on this.
Well, it's nice to meet you, Woody. And you are...
I'm trash.
They were the very first to introduce a paid loot box style reward system with the FIFA Ultimate Team product way back in the day. I think it was around 2010 or something.
Something like that.
Someone did a video on it. I can't remember whoever that was.
Some terrible guy. Yeah.
And then after that, they were the very first to introduce paid loot boxes for a non-sports game with Mass Effect 3, where they literally had FIFA people working alongside BioWare to implement loot boxes into Mass Effect 3's multiplayer. So EA goes way back on this.
Trash.
Obviously, everyone else started hopping into this. Overwatch and Activision Blizzard got, absolutely massive with it.
Sure.
It really kind of popularized it in a way that, those other games couldn't really achieve. And then, of course, we arrive at Star Wars Battlefront 2.
And I feel like that was the moment.
That was the moment.
That was the moment because it was really when shitty monetization mechanics met the hardcore gaming audience.
For sure.
I think before that, FIFA, cool. I'm not shitting on someone that likes to play FIFA, but a lot of them are casual. Some of them are filthy casuals, okay? A lot of them
Says
aren't
Sam.
hardcore gamers that really will fight the big fight and yell the loudest. A lot of hardcore gamers are going to do that. When you touch Star Wars, one of the most, just the most precious IP for any hardcore nerd, you're going to get a lot of backlash.
It may
That's
have been
exactly what
that
happened.
sort of IP back in the day, but the
Not
the
anymore.
Last Jedi.
Not anymore, man.
So, obviously, there were efforts at that time to begin legislating loot boxes, particularly Chris Lee from Hawaii, friend of the channel.
Yeah, we did a little interview with him.
Was
It
trying
was good fun.
was trying to get that happening. Unfortunately, that never took off. But the US now has a new effort to try and legislate loot boxes, which is very good. That's still ongoing. We're keeping you updated on that. Other countries were successful. So, for example, the Netherlands and Belgium, they're separate countries.
Yep.
What about what's
And
the
also, the Dutch were successful.
The Dutch
and,
were successful.
I think Holland also did it.
all three? So all of those countries have banned loot boxes now, and other countries, so for example China and South Korea, have said that they must have loot box odds disclosed as well. So if you want to buy something, you need to know what's the chance of getting the best possible item within that loot box. So there are some efforts. Recently in the UK, we've had their gambling body looking into whether or not loot boxes are gambling.
Yeah, and there's been some stories coming out, like on the
Definitely.
back of that, someone that was spent £3,000 playing games, another one spent I don't know how much. The kids emptied out credit cards playing FIFA. Jim Sterling did a fantastic video speaking about some people's actual experiences with living with someone that was a hardcore gamer that played with a lot of loot boxes, or people themselves that were also dealing with that addiction. So there is a lot of stuff out there that was really showing that this is an actual problem. And they've been currently grappling with that, and now they've got a decision.
Well, before that, though, I must say this also is where we got the beautiful deposition from the EA representative, where we were introduced to the magnifique idea of it's not loot boxes, they're surprise mechanics.
I mean, do you consider loot boxes to be an ethical feature of your games?
First, we don't call them loot boxes. I think that was
Whatever term you wish to apply to them, do you consider them ethical?
So what we look at as surprise mechanics.
So today, this has all come to a resolution where the Gambling Commission of the United Kingdom said, you know what, loot boxes are not gambling. They did say that there's some issues there, but they said they do not fall specifically within the definition of gambling. Let's look at some of the details of the quotes. The UK gambling watchdog has told MPs that it does not currently oversee the purchase of in-game content like FIFA, player packs, and video game loot boxes. This is because there is no official way to monetize what's inside them. A prize has to be either money or have monetary value in order for it to fall under gambling legislation. What they're saying with this, and if you read through, there's more detail which we'll come to, but they're not saying that there's no gambling elements within this at all. What they're saying is, according to their definition that they have as part of British law, this does not apply as a form of gambling for these two reasons. There's no monetary reward, you don't get cash, and also the products themselves don't have any monetary value that can be converted into cash.
I mean,
it's very important to understand that.
Yeah, look, it's real. I'm surprised. I'm genuinely surprised because we've seen Belgium and the Netherlands really kind of take a stance. I thought it was just going to be a domino effect. To see this has been quite surprising because I do fundamentally think that yes, there are some differences there, but there's so many overlapping behavioral and gambling mechanics in general, so inbuilt into games these days. So I'm just surprised that this is the avenue in which they've gone.
I've always been of a view that I feel like calling these things straight up gambling is problematic, right? Because what it does is it forces politicians to utilize their existing definitions of that term and apply it. And obviously, if the definition of gambling in most countries isn't this, they doesn't look at stuff like, buying a skin in Overwatch. Like, what the fuck is that? Obviously, their laws can't reflect that because that's a very new phenomenon versus gambling legislation, which has been around for literally hundreds of years, So I think it's always been tricky to say, let's just call it gambling. What I think what needs to happen is we need to recognize the differences between gambling and this thing, recognize the overlap, and sort of expand the definition of gambling so that we get to the point where we're like, cool, obviously gambling at a casino is gambling, but seriously, people spending £3,000 to try and get Ronaldo in a game, buying packs of cards or whatever, that's also some form of gambling, right? We have to recognize that there's some overlap there. And it's all about gambling-based mechanics. And I feel like if we got away from the term of, is it gambling, and more talked about, like, does it facilitate gambling-based mechanics, I feel like we'd get further in this discussion.
I think there is a middle ground that needs to be, kind of found there, because you're right. I think it needs to be expanded on. I understand that they might look at this and go, if they need to redefine what gambling is in terms of, there's so many industries that are already kind of set up in the way that it's been specifically worded. I'm not saying touch that, but definitely expand on that.
For sure.
Because video game gambling is now a new phenomenon. It's a new frontier. And I understand that a lot of people in politics and whatever, they might not be hardcore gamers. They just don't know. Maybe they are. Maybe they're hardcore Fortnite gamers.
Maybe Mitch McConnell goes home every night.
You never know.
He just smashes Fortnite.
He
yells
loves his
into the mic.
But, I also look at this and go, maybe they just don't have the equipment to be like, okay, I don't have enough experience in this, so I don't know how to attack this problem.
Yeah, I think that's very much the case. Now, one of the very problematic aspects of this ruling is the suggestion that games or the products within them do not have inherent monetary value. And anyone that knows this situation in detail knows that's not true. And they actually did speak about this specifically. They addressed that point. Because what you can do, by the way, in a game like CSGO, is you can actually convert those products, those skins for your stuff, into real-world money through secondary auction sites, which are able to take those items, allow people to like do skin betting on them, and you can actually get real money. So they spoke about this in this ruling, and they said, however, there are unauthorized third-party sites which buy and sell in-game content or enable it to be used as a virtual currency. Gambling Commission Program Director Brad Enright admitted that games publisher EA, which sells the football team management game FIFA, faced a constant battle against unauthorized secondary markets. And then it goes on later on to speak specifically about CSGO and the fact that, look, Valve is probably not doing enough on this front to regulate this and enforce their own terms and conditions.
Sure, I do think that, look, a secondary market is a problem, but I don't know how this is going to sound, but it's kind of... If it was more of an epidemic, if there was more secondary markets popping up for every single game, and we saw that, you know, there was that gambling within a game and secondary markets that you could sell things were just hand-in-hand problems with every game, that would, I think, push the governments then to make a firmer decision on this. But because there's only a few and far between examples like the CSGO or the FIFA management, there's not enough of a problem with being able to turn those gambling mechanics within games into cash that we're able to see.
So you're saying if it was more of an epidemic, then we'd be more likely to see legislation?
Yes.
Sadly, I think you're right.
100%.
Sadly, I think
if there
you're
was... You know, I know that it's almost like saying there's a shame that there's not more gambling sites, but you kind of need that for them to be like, well, this is a real problem.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, their older way of thinking potentially, a lot of these politicians, they might need to see that.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, clearly there's some action needed, and you know, if you look at the sort of win rates that you're able to achieve on these sorts of games, they are criminally low. People are spending thousands of dollars. People are literally spending well more than they should be in the pursuit of this stuff, because games are very specifically structured to provide you lots of incentives. It's the bonus power that you get. It's the social status of like looking cool or being the best. It's, you know, it's the collector's satisfaction, gotta catch them all kind of stuff. Gambling is very much just like, I want the money, that's it. Whereas video games, they create this very rich tapestry of desire that prompts the player to spend, and it gets into the hands of kids. Now, obviously, there's a discussion to be had here about the role of parents and around, you know, about their responsibility in this, for sure. I know a lot of people hate the idea that government gets involved in anything, especially video games, which is an industry that politicians are notoriously bad at understanding.
Yeah,
definitely parents play a role in this, no question about it.
It's hard though, because I think that, you know, when people say, well, you know, parents should take more of a, you know, active role in understanding what technology is, fine, I understand that, sure. But then there are a lot of parents that just look at this and go, oh my god, like, this is so alien to me. This is such a mountain to climb.
Like, if you were to say to our mum, like, explain to our mum what a loot box was, and hey mum, you should probably look at, like, if
actually,
we were kids.
sometimes she does, because she watches the show. She's like,
does
oh,
actually
I
watch
really
it.
like that video on EA today. I'm like, mum, please stop.
But like, you know, just think of like your parents. What chance do they have, do you think, of really understanding this detail, this situation, enough to think, okay, this is a serious problem, I need to act, I need to, you know, police usage, I need to watch credit card usage, I need to decide which games they play and which they can't. I could outsmart my mum when it comes to technology back when I was like 6 or 7 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'm sure my kid eventually will, if I ever have kids, will one day be able to do that. You know, I'll be like 45, 50 years old, and I'll be like, what's this thing here? And it's Fortnite 2, Dad.
Yeah.
I'll be like, no! So look, that's the situation. I don't expect parents to be able to fully grasp this. Yes, there's a conversation to be had about their involvement, but there's also a conversation to be had about governments taking a role in this. This is clearly some form of gambling.
Sure.
If you don't want to call it strictly gambling, fine, whatever, man, whatever.
Yeah,
but clearly there's enough overlap within this to say it's gambling based.
Yeah.
And I think we need to have conversations about how we regulate this to make sure it's not so exploitative, because right now it's fine.
I think that, you know, when people say, you know, they don't want the government involved, I understand that, but I do look at this and think the free market and the publishers and the industry itself is not self-correcting.
Correct.
It's not self-correcting.
They're just doubling down on this. They're making billions of dollars on this front, selling garbage, and with no checks and balances in place from a regulatory perspective. I don't think it's good for the consumer. I don't think it's sustainable in the long term. Shame on you, UK. It's
Shame
not
on
really.
you, everybody.
It's actually not your fault. It's just your laws. So hopefully if you can enlarge
all those
the
old
definition-
politicians.
That's right.
How dare you?
I'm sure Boris Johnson will get right on this. Now that he's Prime Minister, I'm sure he's going to fix this. It'll be top priority for old Boris.
Yeah.
Anyway, ladies and gents, that's the episode. We'll see you tomorrow. Later now.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.